Welcome back to The Fix with me, Karima Brown. And now it's time for the look ahead. Welcome to my journalist panel. We've, of course, got NCA's Tula Simelane, who joins us from Zimbabwe, as well as investigative journalist Tandu Kolo Jiga, and, of course, as usual, Peter Bruce from the Sunday Times. And, of course, Mr. Jiga is from the Mail and Guardian. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the look ahead. Tula Simelane, welcome to you from Zimbabwe. I'm not sure in which part of that country you are, but, of course, the elections, the first time without Robert Mugabe in many, many decades. Let's just quickly listen to comments that he has made about this election, because I want to talk to you about whether he is still a looming presence and whether he can still impact on what happens there.
Or ZANU-PF. I said ZANU-PF. I can't vote for ZANU-PF.
I can't vote for ZANU-PF, Tulas. Did you ever think that you will hear that coming from the lips of Robert Mugabe?
Not at all, Karima. Up is down and left is right as things stand in politics in Zimbabwe. I mean, if you think about it, this is Robert Mugabe. This is the man who would enter any venue, any stadium, and people would be chanting, Mugabe chete chete, Mugabe only, only, only. And that changed in November last year when really things flipped. And in fact, of course, there was that build up to that, because the moment in November was a long time coming in terms of the tensions that were inside ZANU-PF and in the various sections of the state and government. So hearing him saying that he can't vote for ZANU-PF, I must tell you, is something I never imagined I would ever hear him say, because, I mean, that would have been considered to be, you know, someone who has betrayed the party if someone else had said that a few years ago. But let me tell you quickly, Karima, in as much as Robert Mugabe says he doesn't care for ZANU-PF, ZANU-PF says they don't care for Robert Mugabe. A few minutes ago, I spoke to ZANU-PF's North America leader, Philip Chabata, who was talking to me. He was telling me absolutely clear, categorical, that for them, the media briefing by former President Robert Mugabe today is a non-event. They're saying that he was rejected by the people, and he's the reason why we are in this situation, you know, the situation where we find ourselves, where they are saying President Emmerson Mnangagwa is doing a lot of fixing. In fact, the ZANU-PF is kicking Robert Mugabe, well, figuratively, to the MDC and saying that actually this makes it clear that he's subtly endorsing Nelson Chamisa, again proving that up is down and down is up. Chabata telling me that the whole MDC alliance is a Robert Mugabe machination. So, you know, things have really changed in Zimbabwean politics.
Absolutely, and in politics, of course, nothing is certain. Peter Bruce has got a question for you, Tulas.
Tulas, hi. Nelson Chamisa has been sort of going on all week about how he just simply will refuse to accept any result other than a victory for himself. Any victory for President Mnangagwa will just be pure fiction. Isn't this just kind of asking for trouble? He's setting himself up either for a spectacular failure or for some kind of fight after the election result. Why is he behaving like this? I mean, it just sounds to me, not sort of wrong in their head, but it sounds to me like deliberately provocative and unnecessary. I mean, the country's been through enough already. Why can't it have a reasonable election with, you know, and if he happens to win it, fantastic, and if he doesn't, well, he'd have to accept it.
I think it talks to two things, Peter. I suspect that one of them is the mistrust that has, over the past 2 decades, really taken root in as far as the electoral system is concerned. Because no matter how, you know, things are said to have changed, that mistrust always comes back. I mean, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission had to go to the lengths of yesterday publishing the number of ballot papers that they've printed, who printed them. They gave all those details. I think they said for the presidential one, it was printed by Fidelity Printers, and they said that they've printed 6.1 million ballot papers for about 5.69 million voters that are registered for the presidential election. Remember, they are holding 3 elections, local government, the National Assembly, as well as the presidency. So they go to that extent of explaining everything and then even giving a breakdown of each and every polling station, how many ballot papers are there. It's a mistrust issue. That's the one level of it. Even the composition of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, it seems, will always be, well, certainly for now, continues to be a contentious issue. The ZANU-PF, of course, throws it back at Nelson Chamisa and says, well, you were part of, not only part of, you co-chaired the parliamentary process that sort of appointed these people to head up the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, and you thought they would do you favors. Now they are not, and suddenly you're crying foul. That's the one aspect of it. But I also think that, you know, there's a bit of bravado ahead of politics. I mean, who would go into a battle and sort of prime themselves for a defeat? Everyone is talking about a victory and saying that we hope the other side will accept that we have won. So in a way, there's a bit of that also happening. It would be worrying, of course, if after the elections then the results are not accepted, because ideally you want a situation where the person who has lost goes up, congratulates the person who has won.
Tula's final question quickly. If you were to be a betting man, is this going to be a landslide for ZANU-PF?
It's tricky, Karima. It really is. There was a point where I believed that, you know, the sweeping out of power of former President Robert Mugabe and the role played therein by current President Emmerson Mnangagwa, as well as the leadership of ZANU-PF, had sort of worked on their image a little bit. But I mean, you know, you've got to know as well that the MDC alliance has also been working really hard on the ground. This is a group of 7 political parties, some of whose leaders I thought I would never see working together again after post the original MDC. People who were in the trenches at the foundation of the MDC, they've been working really hard. So it's really tricky to see which way it's going to go. It's not helped, Karima, by the fact that you have there's 23 you know, presidential candidates. And
absolutely.
What happens to the split vote? You have people like Joyce Mujuru, people who are likely to also get a fair share of the vote, and Nkosana Moyo, etc., etc. What happens then?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tulas. You will, of course, keep us up to date. Our man in Zimbabwe, Tulas Simelane. Thank you so much. Well, here at home, we have got another bomb, another what the city press calls a treasury bomb, looting bomb. And of course, Tandukolo Jiga, thank you so very much for coming to the program. You've written about this on the Mail and Guardian. You also broke the story this today. What does it tell us about it? I mean, it goes to the heart of state capture. It goes to the kind of extent of the rot that has been going on here. We just had the DG here saying that people should be arrested, that people should go to jail, but standing almost away from, you know, the report that has come out. How damaging is this report really?
Well, I mean, the report itself is quite scathing, and it's very damaging on the on Eskom and Transnet. It talks about you know, issues of gratification. You know, when you read the report, you realize that people have to be indeed charged, particularly, I mean, a person like Anuj Singh, who was the CEO at Transnet and later at Eskom. The appointment of McKinsey, no tender processes followed. They paid for his trips to overseas, Dubai, London, and Germany. And straight after he came back from those trips, you know, McKinsey gets another contract without any advertising or
no
whatsoever.
Due process.
Yeah, no due processes were followed. In terms of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, that talks to gratification. It was a favor, you know, done. So when you look deeper into what the forensic investigation discovers, same process follows at Eskom, where he there becomes a CFO. McKinsey follows him there, and of course Trillian, which of course we now know it's a you know, Gupta-linked company. They also moved there. And then Eskom issued a statement then, which now they say it was Anuj Singh's statement, denying that McKinsey or trillion, had any contracts with Eskom and that they were paid. We now know that, of course, that was not true. So this report puts those things together, and it goes even further. You know, there's about 16 million in questionable in Anuj Singh's accounts. At this stage, it's not clear what that 16 million was, but you also see communication between Anuj Singh, Brian Molefe, Ben Gubane, asking, you know, Anuj Singh to distribute.
I think, I'm going to say, I just think this is just lovely stuff.
16 million.
Yeah, 16 million is absolutely nothing. No, that's not even a real house, you know what I mean? So these are small amounts of money,
of course,
that have been found. If, you know, there's a story been going around for years that in a due diligence that Deloitte did on Eskom once, they found more than 200 million in an account of Anuj Singh's in London. So it's just, you know, these things will bubble over until they really bubble over. And I guess what's going to have to happen is that one of these people is going to get real scared and turn state witness. What's the section that you turn 214,
yes,
or something like that?
But how does one even begin to ask the Hawks? So you were doing the story. You know, what amazes me, Tandukolo, is that when, for example, the police arrest, you know, carjackers or heists, they will tell you how many guns they found, how many cars have been there, what the place looked like. The minute you ask them, have you questioned Mr. Anuj Singh? They say the investigation is at a very sensitive stage. We can't talk about it. What has their response been to you when you inquired? And also, what has been the response of Mr. Machela Koko, who I understand has been tweeting up a storm, as well as someone like Mr. Anuj Singh?
Well, I mean, Anuj Singh simply said that he hasn't read the report, he hasn't seen the report, he can't comment. And of course, Machela Koko, I mean, is tweeting up a storm on Twitter, saying that, wow,
I did nothing irregular.
I did nothing irregular. I've been vindicated, which is not true, because when you read the report, it talks about his role in the facilitation of Tegeta buying a mine, and how prepayment was discussed way before it went to the special board.
This was that famous late-night board meeting,
yes,
right?
And then, you know,
the next day, after which the money got its money.
Got its money. Yeah. So his hands are there. He's right at the center with Anuj Singh in this. So he's not. He is very.
Don't you get the feeling that, you know, if you once these guys, because it's a very comprehensive report. I mean, you see, we haven't had the privilege yet. But,
sorry.
But once these guys are in the dock and they've got a really experienced prosecutor going through what they did, it's going to be very hard to say for Machela Koko or whoever it might be to justify some of the stuff that is in that report, particularly that sort of money, late night. Why meet at 10 o'clock at night as a board meeting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Cross-examination is what we want.
You know, I mean, what we have right now, you know, by now, you know, somebody should be standing in the dock, but it's not happening because we know what happened in terms of the dismantling of our security law enforcement agencies in the past, I don't know, 5 years or so. The Hawks have been very much dysfunctional, and you have an NPA that has been seen not to be, you know, acting. But NPA will tell you, we only act after the investigation has been completed. So just quickly, before we
move to some of the other stories, I asked the DG if he has faith in the Hawks. You've been investigating a lot of this. The Hawks is not telling us what they have. They're not charging anybody, really. Have you got faith in them to actually bring these people to book?
To be quite honest, at this stage, up until now, I mean, we've been doing state capture stories since 2013-14, and nobody has been brought to book. I do not believe that the Hawks have any interest in really acting. To me, it seems as if they're pretending like they're doing something.
I mean, because they can't or because they don't want to?
for me, it speaks to the issue of political interference that was there, and also, there were certain people that were in those positions to ensure that certain cases don't move.
Okay, guys, we've got.
I've got to ask you once. I want to ask your opinion about something, Karima. Can the Zondo Commission help the Hawks see through the fog, as it were? In other words, if they do their job properly, Paul Pretorius, whoever the
Zondo Commission stands or falls by the strength of its forensic investigators and those evidence leaders.
And Paul Pretorius, SC et al., if they do their job properly, the Hawks surely will be listening to the exam.
Yes, I think what we need to do here is we need to actually say, in terms of what evidence has been found, these are the following laws that have actually been broken.
Yes.
And these are the penalties that breaking
Just
such
draw a
laws.
simple list,
So, for example, with the allegation that President Zuma outsourced his executive responsibility, that is, of course, in violation of the Executive Code of Ethics. You mentioned the issue of gratification, the proceeds of crime. So there's many laws, but it seems as if the police needs an education almost in what the laws are that these people could potentially have been breaking, and we should actually just, move on. I've been told in my ear to move on to the other stories.
Yes.
One of the other big things, of course, both of you have been talking about for a long time, is this whole mess in the PIC. We finally see Minister Nhlanhla Nene announcing an investigation. There seems to be some kind of unhappiness, but nobody's telling us exactly what that unhappiness is with the PIC. Do you think that Minister Nene Tandukolo has faith in Dr. Dan Machila to still be the CEO of this massive trust?
Well, look, I mean, he hasn't really come out to, directly say that he has no confidence in him. But the indication is that he really wants the allegations against Dan Machila investigated. And also, that's why he is also setting up a commission of inquiry into the whole of PIC in terms of their investments in the past 3 years, etc., which is exactly what Malusi Gigaba had actually requested. He had written that letter, and the board, instead of responding to that, they instead went for a legal opinion, which, clearly was saying that we're not going to reveal anything. It's quite worrying, though, that, these guys are handling public funds and they don't want to be accountable.
Gentlemen, we're literally out of time. That about wraps it up for the week ahead.